Let him stew for a few minutes. Then go in and tell him that you've convinced me to meet with him one more time. Tell him I'm a loose cannon and that he needs to be more reasonable because I'm such an unreasonable man. Lemec will want to bring his own aides on board. Pretend to be worried that I'll object, and then give grudging permission for 2 aides. No more. Understood?
Aye, sir.
Aye, sir.
Well, I'll say this for him. He's sure of himself.
No, he's not.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Fully Functional TNG Podcast. I'm Maggie, joined by Jeff and Dory.
Yo.
Jeff and I are veteran Trekkies, and Dory is a rookie Trekkie, and we are taking her on her first journey through Star Trek The Next Generation. Today we're discussing the Season 6 episode, Chain of Command, Part 1. The original air date is December 12th, 1992. Almost getting into 93.
Oh boy.
And as always, oh boy. And as always, we'll take it to Dory for the recap.
Okay, so first of all, slight apologies if I sound... I moved... There's furniture. There's no furniture. So this is a weird setup I have. So if I sound different or it's a little echoey, apologies. Okay, so the Enterprise has they're rendezvousing with the starship Cairo near the Cardassian border for a meeting with Vice Admiral
Nechayev. They say her name like 5 different ways in this episode.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
This is also not the last time that you'll see her. She ends up being a reoccurring admiral occasionally.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wrote might not be evil because she's a vice admiral, so not a full admiral.
Good point. Good point.
And then I wrote in my before I explain what actually happened, I'm just going to read what I wrote in my notes. I wrote, "Bitch, what?" Picard offers Nechayev a drink, and she offers him an exit from the ship.
I'm going to be honest. I think this is an absolutely excellent teaser. Like, it's short and sweet and immediately gets to something different is going to be happening this episode.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Nechayev has come. She's like, "Hey, Picard, we're relieving you of duty because we're going to give you a different duty."
Duty.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh my God, there is so much of this episode that I just wrote down exactly of what was happening, of people's dialogue, because I was like, there's no way I have the brain power to organize thoughts.
Like,
for
a
this.
lot
Okay,
goes
so
on in this episode, despite the fact that technically not very much happens.
Nothing happens.
It's very. It's a lot of. Like character drama and whatnot, and it does a pretty good job of that. I wouldn't say the episode necessarily has much in the way of plot. It doesn't have much in the way of story, but it has a ton of plot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the situation. The Cardassian forces, which were recently drawn from the Bajoran sector, have been redeployed along the Federation border. They have mobilized 3 divisions of ground troops, and their subspace communications have increased by 50%. The Federation believes that they are preparing for an incursion into Federation space. Gasp. Okay, so the Federation intelligence report suggests that they'll try to seize one of the disputed systems along the border. They think they're gambling that the Federation won't actually go to war over one system. So they have decided to send the Enterprise to meet a Cardassian representative and open talks. They're hoping the presence of Federation flagship on the border will send a message to their leadership about just how seriously they view this situation. Mm-hmm. So who is going with Picard on this mission? Dr. Cian Worf, who I have referred to in my notes. Because honestly, low-key dream team for me. Mm-hmm. But I kept, I don't know why. It really doesn't make a lot of sense, but I kept calling them the up, up, and away team. Okay. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. Okay. So Nechayev asks if Data, Riker, or Troy know of Edward Jellicoe. And then I immediately thought of the musical Cats, because there's Jellicle Cats.
Yeah.
Not Jellicle, but I was like, listen, close enough. And I was like, this is honestly a very funny name to me. So I refer to him every single time as Eddie Jelly.
Okay.
And I feel like he would have hated this nickname.
Oh,
so
definitely.
I'm going to call him that the entire time. So Eddie Jelly. So he's the commanding officer of the Cairo. Okay. You're going to hear my note pages flip because I am working off a tiny IKEA table and sitting in a lawn chair. Okay, so Eddie Jelly is taking over the Enterprise, but Riker is literally standing right there. I was like, oh, Riker. This whole episode is almost like The Office, but like of Riker reactions, if that makes sense.
I legitimately
Yeah.
feel really bad for Riker in this episode because like he has every
Yeah.
right
He's
to be
constantly being
frustrated,
shat on.
but technically Jellicoe isn't doing anything that's inherently wrong. Everything that he's doing is within
Yeah.
his rights as the captain.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
Eddie Jelly is...
Yeah.
He's not as bad as I
No,
remember
he's
him
just a
being,
little
or
unreasonable.
feeling him being. Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely still think he's a dick, but
Yeah.
he's not a bad guy.
He's
No,
not the
I'll get
worst.
more
Yeah.
into that later, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would like to continue.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they called Eddie Jelly because he helped to negotiate the original armistice. Oh my God. The peace agreement. Jesus, language is failing me.
Armistice.
2 years ago. Yes. Nechayev thinks that he's the most qualified person to lead this mission. That's debatable. Okay, so Nechayev so then I wrote, because she thinks that he's the most qualified person, I wrote then after, so all admirals / fight admirals, vice admirals are evil.
Yeah.
No, she's fine. She's whatever. Riker is understandably shook. And then, okay, I wrote, what in the French vanilla are we looking at? And it took me a second to remember what I was talking about. So so Picard, Worf, and Dr. C are, I guess they're in the holodeck doing like a simulation, and Worf and Dr. C are in all black, and they've got like these outfits, these hoods, and I'm like, are they spies? I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I did like that Worf's eyebrows were truly busting out of that hood.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that a lot. Okay, also loved Worf wearing a backpack for some reason. I don't know why, it just made me laugh. Okay, so Eddie Jelly is a Riker fanboy, so I got excited when he gets on the Enterprise and he is like, oh yeah, knows all this shit about Riker. And he does mention that Riker graduated 8th in his class, and that's endearing to me. I don't know why. I'm like,
It's top 10, but it's
that
like
kind
still
I'm like that like tracks.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's great. Okay, so Eddie Jelly already has a schedule planned. He like gives a whole, speech of all the stuff that he wants done. Oh, and he does ask Riker if he goes by Will or William, but honestly, I never call that man William. I can't picture that. It's the same. It's saying like this is it's in Alaska.
I actually
thing.
quite like that scene because like it sets up Jellicoe as somebody who isn't inherently like adversarial, but clearly like he knows what his position is, and he is laying out the like so that like it is absolutely clear and 100% direct. I'm in charge. This is the way that I want things done, and it is your job to carry them out. This is what's going to happen. And it really establishes that what he's doing like doesn't have any malice behind it. He's 100% just like, no, I do things by the book, and this is how I do them, and this is how I want them done. And I'm not going to beat around the bush, and I'm not going to hint about it. I'm going to be very, very direct and very, very precise about what I want done. And you are going to get it done regardless of what you think about it, because that is your position and your job, and this is my job.
Yeah. My biggest problem with him is he doesn't explain what the fuck he's doing and why he's doing it.
No, he doesn't. That's
And-
right. Yeah,
and, like-
he doesn't really understand the people person aspect of
Yeah.
it.
And like there are other characters and that at times have done that, but it's been very clear that was like for plot reasons, not like that they're a
Yes.
character that like doesn't really care what other people think.
Yeah, and it's not that he doesn't care. It's that the way that he sees it is that it doesn't matter what you think because this is what I want done, and what I want done takes priority because that's my job to decide these things.
And that's why I think he's a dick, because he basically just wants mindless robots.
Yes.
That's why, well, not that Data's mindless, but that's why he, like, Data...
It makes him a crappy job in a social situation.
Yes.
Or, sorry, a crappy boss. My bad.
Yeah.
He's a crappy job.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is
Well,
a crappy
he makes the job crappy, for sure. And, okay, so to be fair to Jellicoe, he does express that they're in a very, like time-limited situation, and that this is, like, a very, like, high-stakes deal. So we don't know what he is... We don't know what he is like under, like, normal circumstances. And if this was, like, a normal transfer of, like, captainship, like, whether, like, what the transition would be like.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I would. I'm going to bring up more on that a little bit later as Dory goes through it. But I would like to point out that like this guy was established for our generation anyway as the bad guy as soon as he came up on screen, because this is a villain in both RoboCop and Total Recall.
Yeah.
Like, come the fuck on! How are we not supposed to think negatively about him?
Yeah. Yeah, he spent like all the 80s playing like fucking evil corporate businessmen. So
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so they have a torchbearer ceremony in 10 Forward, I guess. Riker looks very bummed, and I did notice that Geordi shaved. Rip to that beard.
yeah, I guess
Well,
I
mean,
he got
LeVar
married
Burton.
by that
Yeah,
point.
he went off and got married, and sorry, no more of this. Bye.
So, okay, the transfer of power goes pretty seamlessly. And I liked, like, everyone kind of broke off. Like, Geordi and Riker had, like, a little chat, and Dr. C and Troy had a little chat. And I like that. It felt very just, like...
Like, this is what happens in a situation like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we find out... So, okay, Dr. C, Worf, and Picard are being sent on this mission based on 2-year-old information. Which is,
Well,
honestly, kind of fucked.
The mission isn't based on 2-year-old information. Their information about the location is 2 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 2-year-old information.
Yeah,
but
but the mission is based on recent information. It's just like the information about like the layout of the thing is old.
Yeah, it's like if you got an advertisement for like, I don't know, a new pizza place in your area or something like that, but the newest Google map update of your area is from 2 years ago.
Yeah. It's still not, it's still not the most helpful information, though.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Sorry,
The way that
we're arguing semantics here just because the way you said it made it sound like the whole mission was based on old info.
No.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
like they have information that was like up to date 2 years ago. So that's like not the like, okay, great.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
still
so-
like that's kind of fucked. Like you're going into a situation without
Yeah.
most
Like,
recent shit.
yeah. So, okay, Eddie Jelly calls Riker over about plan to launch a probe before exiting warp, and Riker tells him, oh, yeah, okay, because, like, earlier on, Eddie Jelly's like, okay, so you guys have, like, 3 shifts? Guess what? I want 4 shifts. And so Eddie's like, okay, we're going to do the exit warp, and Riker's like, oh, by the way, I spoke to the department heads, and they said that, like, doing 4 shifts is going to kind of like fuck things up, so I think we're going to stick with 3. But Eddie Jelly is like, fuck that news, we're going to go do 4 shifts anyway, baby.
Yeah.
And the 4th shift is going to better be ready in 2 fucking hours. Riker is pissed.
Yeah, because
And-
also like I wouldn't expect that to be a change you make like immediately. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that should take like at least a day or two to work out.
That
Yeah.
said, Dory, did you notice his catchphrase?
No.
His catchphrase is "Get it done,"
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure that they came up with that like deliberately to be in stark contrast to make it so, because make
Yeah.
it so is much more welcoming, whereas "Get
Yeah.
it done" is like, no, this is your job, do it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very
make
aggressive.
it so sounds like a bit more of a like a suggestion, and get it done is like an order.
Yeah, it's more demanding.
Which is funny because like I wrote in my notes, because Picard is standing there when like Eddie Jelly is like low key chastising Riker, and I wrote Picard is like, what have I done? Why am I leaving? What has happened? And so then they talk about Riker, and Picard says that Riker is one of the finest officers that he has ever worked with, and I was like, yeah, he is. Okay. So they're going to the Enterprise is going to rendezvous with the Cardassian ship in 51 hours 32 minutes. Eddie Jelly is putting finishing touches on his, I wrote bridge reno, but it's not really. He's just like redesignated shit, and he's intense. And Eddie Jelly wants drills for everything for everyone, and Riker's in charge of all these drills. Good for you, Riker. And then he says, also, get the fish out of the ready room.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, what? Not the fish. And I was like, Eddie Jelly, okay. I get that, like, this might be a permanent situation, but I refuse. And I think everyone else is like, this is not a permanent situation. Also, where are they going to put those fish? Who's going to take care of those fish?
Yeah.
What are they going to do with them? Just like
Also, is that
shoot 'em
really
out into
like
space?
a priority right now?
Yeah, he's like, I need the interior decoration to be set up immediately for my office. He's got the wildest priorities.
There is one
this
thing
guy.
that's kind of amusing about it, for the behind the scenes stuff. Patrick Stewart apparently never liked the fish, and he very much disagreed with it even being on the show. He was like, no, I don't think that we should have like captive animals. I don't think it looks good for, the Federation to be doing that. And so some people felt like they pulled the fish out as kind of like a nod to him.
Okay. Okay, so Eddie Jelly also has demands for Geordi a lot, and Geordi is not psyched about this. Also, Data was such an enabler. He didn't mean to be. I think he doesn't realize.
He liked,
because Eddie Jelly was like, okay, we got to do this, and Data just keeps going, oh yeah, that's an attainable goal.
Yep.
And then Geordi's like, Data!
Well, I mean, the point is to underline and highlight that, like, what he's asking is not, like, undoable. It's just a little unreasonable to expect all this right away.
Then it becomes undoable, as we find out.
Well, yes.
Later.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eddie Jelly. Okay.
Although, okay, to be fair, like, it is technically attainable, but basically Geordi lays out that they would have to crunch to get it done. Like, everyone would have to work around the clock.
But that's at that point. Later on, when he talks to Riker, they don't have the manpower anymore, because he says that like a third of his team was moved to security, and he was like, they would be working like, around the clock, every single person at this point. But then if you're taking a third of his like team, then this is now an unattainable this has now become unattainable.
Yeah. So I forgot about that. Yeah.
So, okay. So we're now in the ready room, and I wrote, what is this struck lightning ugly statue in the ready room? Eddie Jelly, his priorities are truly like interior decoration.
Yeah.
And he has a son that drew made a shitty drawing of a
Come on, he's a child.
Yeah, but here's the thing that, I don't know if you realize this. If Eddie Jelly, he's like an old guy. If he has a child young enough to like draw that shitty, he's an old dad. This is an old dad, and all it made me wonder is, how old is his wife?
To be fair, in the sort of 80s and stuff, it was pretty common to have like old parents.
That's very old.
I don't think he's as old as you think he is.
I assume that he's in his like late 50s or something.
He is let's see. He'd be about 50 here. He was born in he was born in 1938.
I can't do math,
So that would actually put him at 50. That would put him at near 55. So that is quite old.
Ah, there we go. Yeah, that is old dad. That is
old dad, but it's not the oldest dad.
No, it's not, of course, the oldest dad. I mean, Al Pacino just had a kid.
That said, he's still alive. Like the actor.
Oh, neat.
For him. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm like, I know Al Pacino's still alive. Like, this is not information.
But I just, like, I was like, how young is...
Yeah.
I'm just curious now of, like, he's got a kid this young. How old's his wife? Because I, like, definitely... I don't know. That, like, just popped into my head of, like, he's got a very young child.
I'm sure people live longer in the Federation. Look at how old fucking the doctor was in the first episode.
I don't know.
He was like 130 or something.
Yeah, I just did not expect him to have such like a young child. But I mean, okay, so Troy comes in and she's like, we really need to talk because you're freaking everyone out with all these like new extreme demands. Mm-hmm. And he's like, great. I'm happy you brought this to his attention. And I was like, uh-oh. And then I was like, he's definitely going to call the crews pussies or something. I was like, he's definitely going to go like, oh, so you guys are complaining about all my, ideas and all my demands and everything. Oh, I guess you guys are just little bitches or something. And I was like, he better not fucking do this. He doesn't, thankfully.
Yeah.
So like, not the word, but I was really expecting him to like be an absolute asshole about this. So yeah, he doesn't. Okay, then he says, listen, Troy, you're gonna fucking take care of this, that you're gonna, people are struggling, you're gonna make sure that everyone adapts to what I want quickly and easily. And then he dismisses her, but then he's like, because he has a meeting with the new security chief, and then he's like, oh wait, but Troy, before you go, he's like, he wants her to wear a standard uniform where she is on the clock. Mm-hmm. And is like, how dare you? Troy can wear whatever she wants.
In all fairness, so the reason that they wrote that into it was because they wanted to like try doing wardrobe changes on her with like more of like an in-universe excuse. And apparently Marina Sirtis was like, oh yeah, that sounds awesome. I'd love to like do a standard uniform thing every now and then too. And they ended up liking the standard uniform so much that they stuck with it till the end of the series.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So spoilers.
Although what I like about that scene though is it's kind of like a reverse, or like a it's kind of a play on that like really creepy thing that like 1950s bosses were known for doing, where it's like, wear a skirt next time.
Yeah,
but instead
this
he's
felt
like
less creepy.
Yeah. No, that's what I like.
It felt more dickish rather than creepy.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's also not
Geordi...
the most unreasonable request. It's like, hey, I would like
really
you to be in
no.
uniform when you're on duty.
Yeah, but again, I think it's really funny that these are his priorities.
Yeah.
I kind of like that scene mostly because it highlights what the what do you call it? It highlights that he needs the crew to adjust to him because he doesn't have time for them to like make it easy on them. Like, this is clearly very important, and it's sad that it took this long into the episode for him to highlight just why it's so important.
Which is another like flaw with this character. And as we've been talking about it, I think I can like put a better finger on like what is so bothersome about it is that he's not even pretending that this could be a temporary situation.
Yeah, he's just decided.
No, that's
he's,
true.
Like settling in. He puts all his kids' shitty artwork all over the wall, and
yeah, it's just like
we'll get into that a little bit later.
So
I think
we're going to talk about each of the paintings.
There's a point where that becomes
drawings.
important.
So like
each of the drawings are significant of his shitty. No, I'm kidding. It's good. It's fine. I'm sure.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, he tells Troy, it's like, I don't have time for them to like adjust to me in the normal way and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but
so
he has time to get. But he has time apparently to get rid of the fish, to put up all his decorations, to all this shit. Like, he could do like he could totally do all this shit without acting like it's permanently his ship now.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
I don't
true,
think
yeah.
he necessarily has the right to do that yet. It's like...
Yeah, he literally, like, same day, he just was, like, I'm gonna say baptized captain.
And
That's not the term.
And, like, he has a conversation with Picard being like, listen, the most likely scenario here is that you're not coming back. Right? And that's fair.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into later. But the way that he says it is kind of frustrating because he says...
Yeah.
Let's wait until Dory gets to that.
Yeah, because we're pretty early still in the recap. Okay, where am I?
Troy just had the combo with him.
Okay, so now Geordi is walking with Riker, and Geordi's pretty pissed because Eddie Jelly wants Geordi in engineering to do a bunch of shit, but then he transfers a third of his team to security, and I just wrote more nerds in security. So Geordi suggests that Riker talk to Picard. But I was like, it really feels like it's just like only look like Riker's going over Eddie Jelly's head.
Yeah.
But then Riker goes to visit Picard in his quarters, but Picard is all sweaty and it's too much for Riker to handle, so he leaves without really talking to him.
Yeah.
Bow chicka bow wow, if you will.
And then, oh god, then Eddie Jelly, okay, so he's having a conversation with Picard, and he says that he can see why Riker is still only a first officer, and I would have slapped him. I'm not a violent person, but I would have said, how dare you? And Picard truly has restraint in that scene, because I would have just, how fucking dare you? Okay, so yeah, and then it's because he's like, oh hey, because he calls him and he's like, oh hey, did you do that thing? And Riker's like, yeah, we did the thing already. And he was like, and see, for me, I interpret for like Riker doing this is like he's told what he needed to do. So unless there's a problem, there's no reason to report back. You can just safely assume Riker's going to get it done. Because that's like what he's shown in the past. Like, unless there's a problem, like he can do what he needs to do. He'll only be like, hey, I'll let you know if there's a and he's like, oh, well, didn't fucking tell me that they launched the thing. And I was like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
Because I was thinking, I'm like, well, if I were to ask for someone to do something like that, I would have wanted to be informed, like, when it happened. But I'm remembering now that Riker does not know the significance of this probe. So to Riker, this is just sort of a sort of banal, like, task. And, like...
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You wouldn't think to inform your captain of every single, like, little thing, right?
Yeah.
It also highlights the problem that you brought up, Maggie, that like the main character flaw with Jellicoe here is that he is expecting everyone to follow him without question and offering zero explanation.
Yeah.
And I get that he can't explain that specific thing, but it's just it adds to the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Picard then is like, don't worry, Riker is the tits, I promise. But Eddie Jelly's like, I don't have time for that, and I will still shit talk him behind his back. Yeah. Like, how fucking rude.
It's like, I don't have time to give him a chance.
Oh yeah, and then I wrote also, this bitch has the audacity to say that Picard probably won't make it back from this mission.
Yeah.
So then Eddie Jelly hands Picard this book because, he needs more space to put another ugly ass statue or more of his kids' dumb drawings. I'm like, what the fuck, Eddie Jelly? All right, so now, here we go. Dream Team. Picard, Dr. C, and Worf are in the shuttle. And Picard can now finally explain the mission. Here we go. Oh boy. Starfleet intelligence believes that the Cardassians are developing a metagenic weapon, a genetically engineered virus that is designed to destroy entire ecosystems. When metagenic toxins are released into a planet's atmosphere, they immediately begin to mutate. They seek out and destroy all forms of DNA they encounter. In a few days, everything is dead. In a month, the metagenic agent itself breaks down and oh my god.
Disintegrates. I think disintegrates?
Yes.
I think it's dissipate.
Oh, dissipate.
Yeah.
They're
well,
similar.
I mean,
It's the same
basically
thing. It's the same thing.
Yes.
And completely leaving every city, every road, every piece of equipment perfectly intact. And so Worf mentions, so it's basically leaving the planet safe to be conquered. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, but with no
there's a
fucking
reason.
life on it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, there's a reason why the metagenics and bioweapons are illegal. So Starfleet intelligence believes that the Cardassians are developing a new delivery system, one that would protect them from accidental exposure to the toxin. They believe the Cardassians are testing a way of launching dormant metagenic materials on a subspace carrier wave so they could activate the toxins after the launch, thereby preventing any accidental exposure. And because subspace waves would appear simply as background radiation, no one would realize what was happening until it was too late. This is honestly a wild plan. Too bad it's not.
Yeah.
It's nothing. It's not the plan.
It's also too bad that these weapons are never used as a scare tactic in the universe again. And I mean, to be fair, I understand why, because like if
it's pretty fucked up.
Well, yes, but like we grew up in the 90s when nuclear escalation was essentially over. In terms of like what was going on in the world. That's not to say that like nobody else has developed nuclear weapons since then, or that there hasn't been any kind of scare, but the constant rise between two superpowers threatening each other with them wasn't really a thing anymore. But in the 1980s specifically, there was a big scare over a new actually, it started a little earlier, but so there was a big scare over a new developed weapon called a neutron bomb, which would have been this, essentially. It would have been able to... It was a low-yield weapon that dispersed a lot of radiation.
Yeah.
And while like the most common use of it would have been for disabling missiles in midair, because that radiation would essentially cause the missile to go through partial fission, so it wouldn't be able to explode upon impact. The idea that they could be used to kill everybody in a city and leave the city intact was absolutely terrifying to people, because you suddenly took the destroy infrastructure part out of the equation of war. Now you can wipe out an entire people and leave it open to conquer. And there was a lot of pushback against it. And in the end, they didn't end up really producing very many of them. And since the last ones were decommissioned in the 1990s, there hasn't been any more, thankfully.
Mm-hmm. And this sort of like takes on a new... this obviously wasn't intentional because this was done before, but it takes on like sort of a new meaning too, with sort of like the post 9/11 world where like we had like the anthrax scares and stuff like that, and biological warfare was like people were really afraid of that.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a new fear among people. So that's basically what this is biological warfare. The thing I don't understand is, okay, like, it's not that I don't understand. It's just, I see a flaw with this in that, like, oh yeah, this leaves like all the infrastructure and all the stuff intact. And it's like, yeah, but the way this specific thing works is that it destroys like everything on the whole planet.
Yeah,
Meaning,
so the planet
like,
wouldn't be usable.
Yeah, because no animals, no plants, it would be like finding an unused city on Mars.
Yeah.
Like, sure, all the shit's there, but you can't live on it. You know? I guess this is the future, you could build a dome or whatever the fuck, but it's like...
Also, there may not be an intention to live on it, just to take it.
And do what with it? Like...
Visit? Go on vacation?
Wait, do what with your technology? Look, we just stole your planet-side shipyard.
Yeah, I guess. True. To me, it's just like, it's kind of a, like... I mean, there's a reason why people don't do it in this universe, but
yeah, that's true.
To me, it seems like overkill.
I think they didn't think out the process of it all that much. They wanted it to sound as like villainous as possible, and I'd say they succeeded at that.
I guess, yeah. I guess my perspective is like, I guess I interpreted it as like colonization, where it's like, oh, this like kind of makes the planet like not very colonizable, like, but I guess that's not necessarily like... It's
like they're destroying it just for the sake of destroying it versus like taking over.
Okay, which, by the way, like this whole like everything dies and leaves everything intact for like people to just move in and use it now is basically what happened to indigenous people in North America with
yes.
like smallpox and shit. It's like, you know, all these pioneers and stuff, like a lot of them did not like build their own villages. They fucking moved into abandoned villages, or
Well, actually,
even villages that were, or they like took them over. Right.
The best sorry, just a minor segue that's part of what you're just saying. The best example of that is the multitude of settlers who said, "Wow, it's amazing! Like this whole continent, and there's like all of these pathways that lead naturally straight to all these plants and whatnot, and things. That, it's like, yeah, dude, naturally, that's what it is."
Yeah, they thought like all this planned agriculture that like was around was just natural. People
are stupid.
Yeah, but that was also a misunderstanding in the way that indigenous people did agriculture, because like the sort of Western way of like doing crops and shit like that is like really fights against nature a lot.
Yeah.
But indigenous peoples, like, specifically in North America and, like the South Pacific and stuff, they have, I'm sure in other places too, but this is the place I know specifically, they more gardened and stuff and, like, created their crops, like strategically in mind. Like, they would, like, you know if you're Canadian, you know the whole Three Sisters, right? Like, corn, beans, and squash.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they grew those three together because they were good crops together, because the squash grows low on the ground and it protects the soil, and then the beans can grow up along the stalks of the corn, right? And so they planted a lot of things like that where it's intentional, but it looks more natural, where like you have like you strategically plant like your garlic and onions and stuff to like keep certain pests and animals away, and there's like other crops that like just grow really well together and stuff, because they take like different nutrients from the soil, or they like, you know, one will like keep away bugs that eats the other one and that sort of shit. Anyway, this has been Gardening Corner.
Okay. So, back to the recap. So,
Yeah.
Jesus. It's
Sorry.
going to be a long episode. No, okay. No, there's a lot that happens in this, and I didn't feel like summarizing. So the past few weeks, Theta Band subspace emissions have been detected coming from Celtris 3. Emissions may indicate that a metagenic delivery system is in operation. Celtris 3 was thought to have been uninhabited until those emissions were detected. Starfleet believes that the Cardassians may have a secret research lab located somewhere below the planet's surface. So their orders are to penetrate the Celtris 3's installation and determine if the Cardassians are actually building a metagenic weapon, and if they are, destroy it at any cost. And so I immediately wrote, why are they the best people for this job?
Yeah.
I still maintain that this was still a fucking dumb decision.
Yeah,
Me too.
I 100% agree with that. Like, knowing what we know about the way that the episode ends, okay, fine, maybe, but at the same time, like, the fact that Starfleet keeps fucking taking like major officers and then sending them out on fucking secret missions and whatnot,
Yeah.
it's like, don't you guys have a division for this?
Yeah.
Where's your fucking intelligence department? Have them fucking do
Seriously.
shit. Because if Picard is such an asset to the Federation, why are they sending him on what they refer to as like basically a suicide mission? Because Eddie Jelly's like, you're probably not coming back. Bye,
Yep.
bitch. And so, like, why would you send Picard on this? Why would you send Dr. Seat? Like, why would you send Worf? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you send these people?
Like, Picard
for
does
this?
give an explanation, but I don't accept
It's
it.
weak.
It's very weak.
Yeah. So okay, so back on the Stargazer.
I actually sorry.
On the Stargazer?
I did like I did like that
Yeah.
when Picard is giving everyone the explanations for why they're there, and he says, "Mr. Worf, your inclusion here is obvious," and it turns to a shot of Worf, and he kind of rolls his eyes, not intentionally. That it just looks like he does that, and it's like, oh man, did the episode accidentally own itself there?
Yeah. So Picard explains that when he was on the Stargazer, they they ducked? No, they did? Oh, I don't know what the fuck I wrote. Oh, they conducted. Okay. They conducted extensive tests using theta band carrier waves, and Picard was chosen for this mission because he's familiar with the methods used for generating them. Bullshit. And then, so as Jeff just said, so they're like, on Worf, you're here for obvious reasons. And I wrote, to who?
Yeah.
I'd love to know what are the obvious reasons, because I don't know them. I don't know why. I don't know that.
Because
and
he's
then Dr. C's
a good fighter dude, good soldier man.
Sure. Not sure that Worf's like a good sword, but like there's no reason for any of these people to be here.
Yeah.
Okay, and Dr. C's job will be to locate and destroy any biotoxins they may find. Again, this is not her area of expertise. Why is she fucking there?
Well, she's a doctor, right? So she's a medical.
But there's not a single other doctor. Not a single other doctor in a science unit or a intelligence unit that would be an expert in these biotoxins. Not just Dr. C, the doctor of the Enterprise. Like literally, there's got to be like a billion other. Not a billion, but like at least a few other people that they could have gone to first.
Listen, I 100% agree with you. I'm just saying what the episode.
Yeah, it's weak.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're like, okay, well, Celtris 3 is in Cardassian space, and they're like, well, how do we get there? And Picard's like, it's okay, I know a guy. He doesn't know a guy.
Like
Picard does not know a guy.
Well, he does, but.
Barely.
He's not very willing.
Picard barely knows a guy.
Yeah.
So Picard, Dr. C, and Worf, they go to this bar, and Dr. C's in a really great burgundy jacket. And Picard just approaches a Ferengi and is like, hey, is Damon Solak around? He's got a business proposition to discuss. And I'm like, is this someone I'm supposed to know about? Like, is this a name?
Actually, there is something funny about it, though. So the scene was originally written to include Quark, who is a main cast member from DS9.
I think I remember that name.
And the thing is that
Maybe
they ended up scrapping that idea because the episode came early enough in the season that DS9 hadn't actually premiered yet, because DS9's premiere got pushed from September until January. So they didn't... They didn't include Quark. And supposedly what Ronald D. Moore did when he was writing the teleplay was he just took everything that Quark was going to say and changed the name of the character.
Yeah. Yeah, so because the episode starts with Admiral Nechayev saying, like, now with the Cardassian withdraw from Bajor, right? And that's the whole, like, DS9 is basically set on a station outside of Bajor, and like that's where the series begins, is with the Cardassians having left, and Bajor now finally being free. Yeah, so this was
spoilers.
Yeah, so that's the pilot episode. It's not a spoiler.
I haven't seen the pilot episode.
It's the premise of the whole series. Anyway.
Well, I don't know the premise of the whole series.
Oh, we've told it to you like 100 times.
Oh, come on. It was only like 10 times.
Well, you think I remember it. Yeah, but you think I remember shit?
True,
come on.
That's fair. But that's why they were starting to set up these overlaps with DS9, because they obviously want to draw viewers to that series, right? And I wanted to say earlier, the reason I was laughing at you for saying the Stargazer is because I didn't realize that you were going into the explanation of like why Picard.
Oh, you thought I just like named the wrong ship?
Yeah.
Cut to the Stargazer.
Yeah, because you were because you said back on the Stargazer, and I thought you meant to say like meanwhile back on the Enterprise.
No, I know. Okay, so the Ferengi's like, Damon Solak is not available, but I can take a message. And Picard's like, we're looking for transportation to Celtris 3. And Picard's like, oh, I heard Solak, runs cargo to Celtris 3, and they would love to quietly book passage with him and his super legit business plans. Mm-hmm. And this Ferengi's like, no, not interested. But Dr. C's like, oh, you're about to be interested.
Yeah.
I love Dr. C. Okay, so she's like, oh, well, I hear Solak is like quite a guy. He's super cool, but I guess he's not cool enough to help us though. Yeah. And Dr. C is like touching the Ferengi's ear and whispering about like how grateful she would be for Solak's help. And Worf is just like, what the fuck is happening? Mm-hmm. And Picard looks like he's gonna need a minute before he can stand up. Of course, because Dr. C is incredible. This convinces the Ferengi.
He's like, when do you want to leave?
Yeah. Okay, so now we just cut to them in a cave. Mm-hmm. So now Dr. C, Picard, Worf, they're in the cave. And Picard's like, oh, the tricorder better be working because it's like super easy to get lost in here. And I thought that was going to be a factor in this. Maybe it comes up in the second half, but it wasn't a factor in this episode. Okay, so Dr. C is picking up some subspace signal but can't seem to get like a lock on it. Picard's like, oh yeah, that's typical of theta band emissions. They have to compress the detection bandwidth in order to determine the fixed source emission, whatever. And it's 500 meters east of there and 700 meters below. And then a Linar, which is a bat, I guess, flies over Worf's head and he kind of freaks out, which honestly, same.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like scared of bats per se, but I have had one flow by my head or just hang around my head and I did not know and wasn't psyched about that. That was, Jeff, do you remember when we were filming and I was in the cave as the dead arm? Yep. And then the fucking bat flew by my head and I remember our friend like kind of like flinched and I was like, what's wrong? And she's like, nothing, don't worry, you're fine. I was like, okay. And then we go to the cave and she's like, a huge bat just flew by your head. I was like, what the fuck? So Worf, I sympathize. I get it. I also don't like things flying around my head either. So I get that on that level too. Yeah. I don't like birds. So nothing flying around my head. Okay, so then Riker, on the Enterprise.
Sorry, you forgot that Dr. C makes fun of him for it.
Oh, I didn't write it down because I support Worf in his fear of flying.
I just thought it was funny because she's like, "You're not afraid of bats, are you?" And he's like, "Of course not." And then he just like, skulks away, like keeping an eye on like up above him.
So okay, back on the Enterprise, Riker lets Eddie Jelly know that Lamek, who is the Cardassian representative, has arrived and is waiting in the observation lounge.
Mm-hmm. Gull is the Cardassian equivalent of captain.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Gull is captain. Okay. Glynn, I think, is commander.
Yeah, it's like Riker. Okay. They're the first officer.
Yeah, sort of like how whenever you meet a Ferengi, a captain Ferengi is a daemon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're like, yep, he's in the observation room, and then Eddie Jelly's like, oh cool, well I'll be in my ready room.
Yeah.
And Troy and Riker are like, what the fuck? And so then he explains to them that the Cardassians want to be the alpha. Yeah. He does this whole stupid wolf metaphor, but I'm not doing that.
Yeah, it's basically
he's it's just a power move.
Yeah,
he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go like waste time as a power move because I'm in charge.
Mm-hmm. It is interesting that he goes for like a metaphor that's based on like animals and whatnot because like I guess like dehumanizing the bad guy aliens has been unfortunately a big thing in Trek for a very long time, and this is yet another example of that to me. They did it a lot with the Klingons earlier on.
Yeah. Because like it is true that like in the Star Trek universe, like culturally Cardassians, like especially like we don't know too much about like Cardassian civilians, but in the military they are like these very like macho bullshit like dudes, right? So this
Yeah.
this makes sense to like meet them on their level. It's like I know how they perceive things, so I'm gonna play into that.
Yeah, they're gonna pee on the tree
yeah.
first.
As
But
they
once
develop
again,
them,
he doesn't fucking tell people what he's up to until
yeah,
afterwards.
not until afterwards. Yep.
Yeah, because then there's some pretty unhinged behavior that happens. So finally, Eddie, Jelly, and Troy and Riker go into the observation room? Observation lounge. And, they've made this guy wait for a fucking hour. And he's like, Eddie Jelly is being very dismissive about this. But then he gets upset when Gol Lamek calls him a mere captain. And he's like, how dare you? So Eddie Jelly's like, wow, I guess you're like really not here for the right reasons, and just like leaves. So Eddie Jelly they go out and they're now on the bridge, and he tells Troy and Riker that like, oh, we're just gonna let like this guy sit and stew for like a few minutes, and then go in and tell him that like they convinced Eddie Jelly to return to the talks. And he's like, tell him I'm a loose cannon and he needs to be more reasonable because I'm such an unreasonable man. Lamek will not want to bring his then he's like, okay, I did find that line was really funny. So basically he wants Lamek to bring his own aides on board and like pretend to be worried that like Eddie Jelly will object, and then give him a permission for 2 aides, no more. And Riker's like, oh, well, at least he's like sure of himself. And Troy's like, actually.
Yeah. And that's the thing. If you're gonna play good cop, bad cop, maybe fucking tell the people that are supposed to be the good cop, like, what the fuck you're doing.
Yep.
Like, if this isn't, like, if you don't know each other and this isn't a play you've done before, like...
Yeah.
Like, this is what I mean by, like, not telling people messy. What the fuck he's up to.
Yeah, Eddie Jelly is just messy. He's a messy bitch. Okay, so now, back in the cave. So they find this granite pit, and they decide to rappel down the side. And they reach the bottom, and Dr. C is like, what are the chances we find a different exit? And I'm like, honestly... Yeah, because otherwise, like, I was like, Dr. C does not want to climb up. And I'm like, that's very fair. Yeah. Okay, so they've got their tricorders. They find a lava tube behind the rocks that run for 75 meters, then connects with another chamber. They got to get in there. And I'm like, oh, is this why they brought Worf? Because he's the muscle/weapons expert. And he just, like, makes a hole into the tunnel. Okay. So Eddie Jelly walks back into the observation lounge and greets Lamek like they haven't met before. I was like, okay. And even like Lamek is confused. He's like, what? And he introduces his other guys, Glyn Korak and Glyn Tajer. And so they all dress the same. But it's not just like the outfit, same haircut too, which is upsetting.
That's unfortunately like kind of status quo for Star Trek. Just like the Romulans all have the same haircut, too.
But honestly, I don't find the Romulans that upsetting. These guys, their costume, I was like, their looks were upsetting to me.
It's because they're designed to look like lizards.
Yes. Yep, I got that.
Oh, yeah, and your snake thing. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Okay, so then... so then Eddie, Jelly, Troy, and Riker, they go completely to the other side of the table, and the Cardassians are, like, all the way at the other side. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to be super chill. That's, like... Oh, so then they're talking, and they're like, oh, so you've got, like, some people hanging out the border. And they're like, oh, we're not, like, doing anything weird or sketchy. Or they're just, like, doing training exercises. And so then Eddie Jelly's like, oh, maybe the Federation will also do some training exercises or whatever over there, too. And then, like, they're like, oh, the Federation will not start a war. And then Lamek is like, oh, but our intelligence says there's already a team in Cardassian territory. And that would be super not chill if that was true. Mm-hmm. And Eddie Jelly, in the least convincing voice, was like, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
And then I wrote, unfortunate pause with 9 minutes and 17 seconds left. Because so Lamech laughs, and I paused it at the worst possible time I could have done that. And his, like, with his teeth and, like, the makeup and the hair, he legit looked like a snake, and it was really scary. I did not like it. Yeah, it was, like, the smile was really creepy. And then Lamech's like, oh, by the way, where's Picard? It would suck if something would happen to him. I think he said someone is, like, important or talented, but I wrote, it would suck if something happened to someone as hot as him. Okay, so back in the cave. Team is, they're crawling through a tunnel and out into a chamber. The guys, they just pop out. They do not wait for Dr. C. And then the ceiling caves in on her. But fortunately, Worf gets her out. I was worried she was, like, legit hurt. And I also was like, oh, what if the shit that just fell on her is, like, part of the toxin? And, like, now she's infected and she's sick. No, that's not the case at all. I got worried for nothing. That whole setup was for nothing. That ceiling collapse was for it did not matter. Anyways, okay. So,
I can't wait for us to get to season 7 and that Trey can't help you anymore. Like, in terms of being worried about characters. Because you're like, how early in the season did they make that Trey? Who knows?
That Trey has been my show Bible. Okay, so they find a door with, like, 3 proximity sensors on the other side. And I then also wrote, why are they wearing black? Because they did the simulation and they knew the cave was, like, bluish.
Yes.
What? And so the fact that they're wearing black does not make any sense.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't blend in. You wear black to blend into your surroundings. Because you're in a dark space or something.
Yeah.
Why did they wear black?
Because, like, in theory... Like,
and they knew what the place looked like.
If this was a real cave, it would be a lot darker. But it's TV, so they need some lighting. Although apparently not anymore.
But it looks like
these days. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks dumb.
Yeah.
Okay, so they get the door open and there's just, like, a little robot guy, just like a little guy just sitting in the middle of the room. There's no lab. And then, okay, everyone, cue Admiral Akbar. Let's all say it together.
It's a trap.
It's a trap. So immediately they try to make a run for it, but oh no, there's, like, other fucking people and everyone's shooting. And one Cardassian comes up behind Worf and really thought that, like, he had Worf. And I was like, okay, Jan, Worf takes him down in 2 seconds. It was, like, a backwards, like, behind bear hug, but, like, don't even, like, Worf will eat you for breakfast.
Yeah.
But then Worf does struggle to keep the door open, but I will allow it because that is a metal door.
Yeah.
So Worf gets Dr. C, squeezes through, and they're like, Picard, come on.
And it wasn't, like, just closing. It was being powered closed, so.
Yes, and also then Worf gets shot full out in the chest, and he's still just like, ooh, still doing it. And, okay, Picard, so then they can't hold it anymore. Worf gets shot. He falls out. The door closes. So Picard doesn't make it through, and now he is captured. Oh no, how did this happen? Said nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's, like, so back on the... they're on the Enterprise. They're like, there's some chatter and coded messages coming from around, like, Celtris 3, and also no more emissions from the planet. That's so weird. And then Eddie Jelly's like, ooh, I gotta call Vice Admiral Nechayev in his ready room. And I was like, how dare you? His ready room? And Riker's like, also was like, his ready room? Okay, so he calls Nechayev and she's like, cool, I really hope we see our friends again. I was like, girl, what? Kind of react. They do such, like, a weird, for two people who know what's going on, they do, like, the most weirded coded conversation of, like, or not coded, just, like,
well, I think
vague conversation.
I think it is supposed to be coded.
Well, I hope our friends come back.
Yeah, I think it is supposed to be coded, like, just in case, like someone.
Yeah, it's pretty nothing though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now Picard is brought into truly one of the most minimalist rooms / offices I have ever seen, and I don't like it. It is I don't care for it. I don't care for this interior design. And so, Picard is just like left with this guy. We don't know who this guy is yet. And he says, "Oh, you should prove an interesting challenge, possibly the most interesting to come through that door in many years." And Picard goes, "What do you want?" And then the guy goes, "Why, you, of course." I'm like, yeah, we all do. You're not special. And then he's like, "Picard, Jean-Luc." And I was like, gasp. And then, oh shit. Also this guy like basically monologues of all this shit about Picard. We do learn that his parents, because I don't recall knowing his parents' names, but they're Maurice and Yvette. Mm-hmm. Picard, which is like, oh, cute. Okay, so now we learn the Cardassians were way more prepared. And they researched Picard before they got him. So like they knew he conducted extensive studies on theta band subspace carrier waves, and they designed this whole thing as a lure for the captain of the Federation flagship based on his background. So they did their research and were like, let's come with a plan based on what we know, which is how much we can say for this Federation.
What? Like,
okay,
totally,
so they basically... I said, they can't say the same for the Federation.
Oh!
Okay, so basically the Cardassians, they come up with this elaborate ruse basically to just get Picard. Mm-hmm. And this guy, he's got some questions for Picard. And if Picard, he needs to give an answer. If he doesn't like it, Picard will die. Gasp, to be continued. What a ride.
Yeah.
What a ride this episode was. Sort of.
Yeah.
It was a ride.
Yeah,
but
this
whether or not it was a good
lot.
ride or a bad ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I'm interested to know why they want Picard of all people. Mm-hmm. 'Cause no, I'm not gonna, like, I don't know what the Cardassians specifically need him for. That is a pretty, honestly, though, like, great plan, though.
Mm-hmm. Because Starfleet's dumb enough to send the captain of the fucking flagship on a secret mission.
Yeah. So honestly, like the Cardassians, that was a good plan.
Yeah.
They're bad. These are bad, but like they did their research and they like put all their shit together and their resources, and they were very successful. They got him. He's there. So
yeah.
And yeah.
Did you recognize what do you call it? Did you recognize who that Cardassian at the end was?
No.
Okay.
I referred to him as Guy in my notes because
Okay.
I did not recognize him.
He's a pretty prolific actor. I wouldn't say he's like super famous, but those who know him know him.
The actor. I thought you meant the character.
Oh,
I was
no,
like, I don't know
the
character.
actor.
The actor. No, I didn't recognize him.
Okay, the actor's name is David Warner, and he is similar to Ronnie Cox, who plays Jellicoe, also well known for playing rather sinister villains.
Okay, I'm gonna look this up. I want to see if I know him from anything.
He was in the 1980s Christmas Carol.
Wait, is that the one with the kid that licks the pole?
No.
No, that's A Christmas Story. Never
Yeah.
mind. Okay, then I don't know Christmas Carol.
I was like, when the fuck does Tiny Tim lick a pole? Was he that hungry?
Wait, Ronnie.
no,
Ronnie Cox was the Cardassian?
No, Ronnie Cox was Jellicoe.
Oh, okay. So who was the Cardassian?
David Warner.
Oh, David Warner. Okay, why?
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain.
He was in Titanic.
Yes, he was in Titanic. He was the what do you call it? He was like the guy that was like kind of in charge of reining in Rose. Like the older guy.
Oh yeah, the like security guy.
Yes.
Okay, honestly,
like,
I've seen Titanic.
Yeah.
I don't really remember the like much of the movie per se, because like I've seen it, but it's been a very long time.
That's fine.
He was in a couple episodes of Penny Dreadful, which I did like that show. Oh, he was Van Helsing in Penny Dreadful. I do not remember him, but party. Okay. Well,
He was in some Doctor Who stuff, looks like.
He was. He's actually been in another Star Trek.
Oh yeah, a lot of
thing.
Doctor
He
Who
was
stuff.
in a pretty bad Star Trek movie.
Party. All right. Well, good for
But yeah,
him.
he plays a really good villain. You're gonna like the more that you see of him, I think. The best thing about him that I won't spoil anything about the upcoming episode, obviously, but I mean it's clear he is in the upcoming episode.
Yeah.
But there was somebody else who was cast for that role, and they ended up having to back out at the last minute, and so they called up David Warner, who showed up with a total of 2 days of preparation because that's all they gave him. And
Wow.
he was essentially reading lines off of cue cards for half of the scenes.
Jesus.
Whoa.
And he still steals the fucking show.
Yeah, knowing the episode, I'm like very impressed.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's
was
a fantastic actor. He's really, really talented.
So he was also in a Star Trek video game. He was in
Yes, he was.
Trek. He was in Star Trek Klingon Academy.
Yes, which is a like a video game. You
Oh.
know.
And he was
What?
in Baldur's Gate 2.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He was the villain in Tron as well, which is where I know him from.
Ah. The original Tron, or
Yeah, the original. He also okay. So this one's quite interesting.
he was in
has
Fallout also.
He has a history with. Yes, he was in Fallout. Fuck, I can't remember who he played in Fallout right now. Anyway,
shit, I scrolled past it.
That's okay.
Morpheus.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Yeah, all right. I don't
He
always
was in
recognize his voice right
Gargoyles?
away when I hear him, but so he was actually in a movie in the 70s called Time After Time, which is a really strange film about what's the premise?
He was Ra's al Ghul in the Batman the Animated Series.
Yes, one of two of them, because there were
Oh.
two people who voiced him. So, Time After Time is a really weird movie that's about H.G. Wells traveling forward in time to chase down Jack the Ripper, who stole one of his time machines. It's a very weird movie. Basically, Jack the Ripper travels to like the 70s, and H.G. Wells tries to track him down. And it's a very strange movie. Anyway, it was directed by a pretty prolific director in Star Trek's history named Nicholas Meyer, who's the guy who directed Wrath of Khan.
Oh, neat.
Yes.
He was
And
in Twin Peaks,
opposite
too.
of David Warner was Malcolm McDowell.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry, I'm getting quite a bit sidetracked with like background stuff here, but
Oh, sorry. So he was in the very terrible Star Trek movie, but he
Yes.
was also in the next
yes.
significantly better Star Trek movie.
Yeah, he played the Klingon Chancellor in that one. It's interesting
Yeah.
that they got the same guy in the very next movie, and we're just like, we'll put you under enough makeup that no one will notice.
Yeah.
And I mean, people didn't notice, really.
Yeah, he plays Chancellor Gorkon, who he plays in the video game in Klingon
Yes.
Academy.
Yeah, because the game takes place during that period. Yeah. It's a pretty decent game. It's just weird. Like it's a lot of
Yeah.
it's a lot of ship combat, and then it's a lot of what are they called? Full motion videos of people in Klingon outfits doing Klingon things. Gowron's in it. He's featured quite prominently, actually.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Anyway,
Cool.
Dory. Hi. Did you like the episode?
No.
Okay.
I didn't hate it. It's definitely not like the worst one, but I was like, none of this, like, it's all so dumb to me.
Yeah.
Just like,
well,
I could not get over the fact of like, what, like, there's truly no, like, the fact that they sent Picard and Worf and Dr. C on this mission, to me, like, completely, like, took me out of everything of like, that's so dumb.
Okay, that's
There's
fair.
no reason, like, I don't need to watch this episode again. I'll put
Yeah.
it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like you don't have a specific hate for it, but the dumbness gets to you.
Yeah, I also, like, I don't really care much for Eddie Jellies, so, like,
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
to
I mean, nobody
not
really
have
does.
to-
Yeah, you're not supposed to. He is like one of the most hated characters in Star Trek. I don't know most hated, but he is very, very disliked.
Yes, he is.
So, and,
Dory.
Yeah.
Sorry, Maggie, go ahead.
Finish I kind of, I don't know why
I said... trailing off?
Yeah.
Okay. So, it's interesting the background that was going on in this episode, because it's immediately laid out that it's a two-parter in the middle of a season, which they hadn't done before. Wait, no, sorry, they did Unification. But yeah, it's a two-parter in the middle of the season. It wasn't supposed to be. They came up with that later. Not like late into production or anything, but it was supposed to be a one-part episode, and Picard was going to be rescued at the end, and there we go. And what ended up happening is they were looking into how they could save money this season because they were going over budget, and they're like, well, we have all these sets built for this and all ready for this, and we have these actors ready for this. What if we didn't resolve that episode at the end and turned it into a two-parter? So they essentially kept everything the same, except Picard gets captured and is not rescued.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, the next episode is pretty bodily too.
It is, yeah. It uses all of the same sets that this episode did.
Yeah. That is very clever. And it is
it is. And
one of the more well-known episodes.
It is. It's interesting because so Dory, the first part that you just saw, the reason that it's as regarded as it is because of what comes after that. All in all, I definitely agree with you that the first part, there really isn't that much that goes on. It seems to all be set up for something else, for the most part.
Yeah, when people think of this two-parter, they always think of part two.
Yeah, and they think of it as one complete story. Because even though the two are separate episodes, they don't really make separate episodes very well. A lot of episodes will change genres between each part, or it gets written by a completely different person, so it feels completely different. Whereas part two in this case is going to have the exact same feel to it. It's going to have almost all of the same characters. And it's going to be relying on the things that you learned from the first part to enjoy it.
Okay. Well,
anyway, yes.
I would say there is
better than this.
I hope so.
I'm trying not to give too much away, but I would say there is I wouldn't say it exactly has the same feel of this episode. I think there's
no, I mean in terms of the tone that it's written in. Clearly there isn't different writers for them, and there isn't. It's the same writer.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to something like Best of Both Worlds, and part one is this tense horror kind of almost story, and then part two is not at all, and some parts of it are even lighthearted, like the resolution. We put them to sleep, sir.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I want to disagree with you, but I can't without spoiling things.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think you're totally wrong. I get what you're saying, but I think there is a very distinct tone shift in the things that happen in the next episode.
Okay.
That it's it definitely feels written by the same people, but I wouldn't say it's exactly the same vibe.
I don't mean that they have the same, because genre-wise they're different. One of them is...
I would say they're the same genre, but...
a different font.
Yeah.
Different font.
Okay. I better quit while I'm ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next episode.
Arial bold instead of just Arial.
Yeah.
It's also been a while since I watched part two, so I might just be talking out of my butt. Who knows?
Yeah, and yeah. I'll have to bring this up when we do part two, because I don't fully disagree with you, but there is I would say that okay. You know what? I'm just going to leave it for part two.
Okay. Sounds good.
This discussion. And I will tell you in our private messages what exactly I disagree with.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'll be the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I wish that the raid part of this episode didn't feel like filler, because like I know it's supposed to
Yeah.
be tense and whatnot, but it really isn't. Especially since they're not nearly as rushed during the actual raid as they were during the training. Like they seem to be kicking it back, and they're just like, well, we don't really know where we're going, and it's like I know that the info was old, but they seem to be like almost casual about how they're approaching it. In some parts of it, not all of it. Like once they've reached the doorway, they're like, "Oh shit, this is intense." But when they're like looking for where they're going, they're like, "All right, well, down to the next step, up, down to the next step," and it's like, okay, guys, like, what is this doing to help the episode?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's really it doesn't feel like it matters a whole lot.
No, it doesn't.
And maybe that's especially because because Jeff, you and I both knew that like the threat was fake
Yeah, that's true.
from the beginning.
But Dory felt like it was kind of pointless too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think the plan was interesting, that, like,
Yeah.
it was just a whole ruse to get Picard. Their reason why they wanted Picard better be fucking exceptional, because I cannot think of a reason why they, like, needed him so badly, other than, like, are they gonna ransom him? But, like, if that's the reason, I'm gonna scream. They just want to use him as, like, a bargaining chip. That's, like, that would be a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, watch That's What It Is. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, the whole plot, it just felt like a whole excuse to just get Picard where they needed to get him to. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
instead of, like, being something interesting in its own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. And like, it's too bad because the episode has some interesting elements to it.
I definitely think so.
And like, it's not bad. It's just everything that happens in it is not much is happening.
Yeah. Like, I like all the interpersonal stuff, all the relationships, and like
Yeah, I really enjoy
seeing-
that.
Yeah, seeing like the disruption to this dynamic that we've gotten used to and like gotten to like and all that stuff. And I do really like the way they designed Jellicoe as a character.
Yeah. Yeah, they do
because-
a good job creating conflict in the episode just by his own behavior.
And it feels organic. It doesn't feel like conflict for conflict's sake.
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
Right? It's definitely like it's
consistent with the character that they're setting up for him too.
yeah, and the conflict is a clashing of personalities and style. You know, it's not just like, oh, this guy's being a dick because we want some conflict on this show. It feels like an organic, in-universe reason for this to be happening. And like I mentioned earlier, I like that he's not just purely an asshole. He is not like... He is an asshole, but he's not a bad person.
He's not evil. Yeah. He's an asshole, but he's not evil.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I would even like go far as like, he's not a villain. He's just a dick.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what he is.
Yeah. And I'm realizing that I'm finding it hard to like talk about this episode without the other part. I think that this is definitely a two-parter that needs the second half.
Yes, definitely.
You know, to complete the whole story. You know, and that doesn't always happen. Like sometimes it's like there's a little bit of it in this episode where it's like sometimes the first half will just be like, you know, a lot of exposition and a lot of filler just to like get to the second part, where they want all the action and shit to happen. And yeah, like we discussed, there's a little bit of filler in this episode, but it's not like it, like in the two-parter where they're looking for Spock, that felt like the first episode didn't really need to exist.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
I would not say that that's the case for this episode at all.
No.
This very much needed to be there.
Yeah,
And
this is a two-parter that needs to be as long as it is, and it's too bad because there is technically still stuff that is not super useful in it.
yeah. And there are other two-parters where it's like, okay, you really didn't need part 2. You could have finished this up in part 1.
Yep.
Where
Yep,
like
definitely.
the story is basically resolved, and then they just have some other bullshit in part 2 because they didn't know how to finish it, basically.
So for the record, for the audience, normally what we do when we are recording these is, well, not normally, but more recently what we've been trying to do is we've been trying to do 2 episodes at once, where we'll watch 2 episodes ahead of time, and then we'll do the recording for both of those episodes in a row, and we just record the what do you think about what's going to happen in the next episode before we watch either of them for both episodes for Dory. Because like it doesn't matter what order she watched them in, but
Yeah,
in this case,
we'll pre-record some predictions, basically.
yeah, but in this case, obviously we're a little limited in that, so we have only watched part 1, and we have to shut the fuck up because Dory doesn't know what happens yet.
Yeah.
He. I will soon.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, that's true.
But soon is relative to us versus listeners when this episode goes out.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks.
That being said, I think it might be time to move on to favorite moments and lines.
I agree with that.
We're about an hour 20 into this recording.
I liked Dr. C's burgundy jacket.
And she looked really good with her hair up, too.
Yeah. And yeah.
What about her, like, using her charms on the Ferengi guy?
Yeah, I like that too. I guess just Dr. C in that scene, that one scene.
I like that moment because it like undercuts and highlights how like important this obviously is supposed to be. Like I kind of wish it had been with Quark in the end, but they do a different crossover later on in the season. That's I wouldn't say it's more interesting, but it's equally interesting to what this scene could have been.
Yeah. I'm not sure how, like, I can't say how it would have come off with Armin Shimmerman's delivery, but
Yeah,
the
that's
dialogue
true.
doesn't feel very Quark to me, to be honest.
Well, no, this would have been really early Quark. Like, think about how Quark acts in the pilot episode, for instance.
True. Yeah. I guess I can't really get, like, because Quark's not, like, a sniveling Ferengi,
Yeah.
like a lot of people are. Even from the beginning, he's not really, he's a lot more confident.
Yeah, that's true.
But again, that could just be this guy's delivery.
Yep.
You know, like maybe the lines would have worked with, you know, the way Quark would have done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he would have delivered it in a much more, what's the word? Because Quark doesn't deliver things in a snivelly way. He delivers them in like a coy way.
Yeah, he's like a very good slimy car salesman. I would say.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Like
he's
when
definitely slimy about it, and he's
Yeah.
kind of proud of that.
Yeah, and like not like because there are like the skeevy car salesman types, and then there's
So he's a Ferengi with an ego.
yeah. I mean, all Ferengi have an ego, but
Yeah, but Quark really
a
does, and
different ego.
he's just so like fun arrogant about it.
yeah, he's like one of those like you can tell he's a fucking scammer, but you're like you can see yourself falling for it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your favorite moments? Because mine is just Dr. C in that scene and her jacket.
I don't know if I really have a favorite, to be honest. I kind of generally like, here's the thing. I do not like Jellicoe, like, as, like, a captain. Like, in universe, I hate that guy. As a character on a TV show, rewatching it, I really like him. Like I said, I like the way they designed the character.
You like to dislike him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can you hate him, but you can also see the logic and reason behind it too. So you're like, I guess I can't be too mad, but the way he's doing it is really fucking dickish. And I just thought they did a really good job, like, making him really different from Picard, and making you, like, feel uneasy about this guy and be worried about, like, the future and all this stuff, but, like, not making him outright, like, a villain. So that's what I think. I think they did a really good job with his character. I think that's my favorite part.
Yep, I agree with that. I generally enjoy watching his interactions with the crew and the way that it throws a wrench into things. But I found myself actually quite liking his first appearance on the ship more than I remembered I did. I didn't actually remember that scene that well, and like I always remember Jellicoe as like, oh, he's a dickwad and whatnot. But I tried to approach it this time with like the active thought in my mind that like, okay, what is this guy's motivation behind things? Because I wanted to think about him in a more honest way, I suppose, not just what the writers were intending, but also how this character comes off in like within the universe. And whether I think the characters that I like and am therefore biased towards are actually in the right, or if the episode is just kind of gearing itself to be like that. And I realized that in that introduction, he both shows that he is like very direct and no nonsense, but also he's perfectly fine with like being casual towards you. It's just that his version of casual is not the same.
Yeah.
And that's fine. He's a character that is the wrench that's being thrown in the normalcy of the rest of the episode, just by the way of the design of the character's personality. And I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoy his intro scene where he makes Riker uncomfortable immediately because of it, just by being completely, like, doing everything within his own power and being not even an asshole about it. He's just like, okay, this is the way that we're going to do things. How would you like to be referred to, Will or William? All right, great. Talk to you later.
Yeah, because it's like, even in that scene with Troy, he does take her concerns seriously, and he thanks her for bringing it up, and it's, at least to me, it seems genuine. But he just kind of doesn't understand that you can't just make people comfortable automatically. He just doesn't seem to, like, understand the people management part of it.
He's trying to
I think it's more so that he doesn't care in this case. Like, he's not interested in going through all of that.
Yeah,
my job is not to make the people comfortable. That's your job.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of that. Like, I definitely agree with that, but I do, at least for me, I get the sense that he, like, it kind of just doesn't click for him. So he, like, I don't really get this, so I'm just gonna not worry about it.
He's delegating morale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Like, I think there's a little bit of, like, both in there, in that, like, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but like, it's like he's not totally dismissive of like people's feelings. He just like maybe doesn't care about them as much as I feel like he should.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah. Like, I would never agree that Jellicoe's approach is more effective.
No, I wouldn't say so.
But with the right people, it's not necessarily the wrong approach.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, is like why I said earlier, like, to be fair, we don't truly know what he'd be like under normal circumstances. Because I feel like people could get used to that, like that style of command. I mean, they're all like Starfleet officers. They've like, very few people on the Enterprise have only ever been on the Enterprise. So they're used to being under different types of commands. and stuff like that. It's just, it was like very sudden and like such a shock, and it's like extremely different from how Picard did things. Anyway, predictions for the next episode.
Yes.
So the next episode is part 2. So what do you think's going to happen in part 2?
I think we're going to spend the episode with Dr. C and Worf's just lost in the cave.
Yeah.
I think that was foreshadowing, and now they're just lost. No, but honestly, how the fuck are they getting out of there? Because that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I do hope that they like explain how they get out of there, because those two better be safe.
Yeah.
They better be okay, or else. Well, I know they'll be okay because of my season 7
tray.
platter.
Yeah.
Yes, the tray. But I don't want to see them hurt.
Yeah.
So they better be okay. Okay. I was actually thinking about like, why would they want Picard out of all people, other than just the fact that he's like the captain of the Federation, and aside like if it's not for like ransom reasons, the only other thing I honestly that popped into my head of like that is like notable of like Picard's shit that maybe is something that they would be interested in is the fact that when Picard was a Borg. And I wonder if like that has anything to do with anything. That like, because the Borg were pretty fucking terrifying, and they just were like destruction. They just, and I imagine, it seems like the Cardassians got, I don't know what they like want to do, because the whole episode was like, oh, this plan, because they're going to use like, bio warfare, and no, they weren't. So we don't know if they actually are like anything to do with anything related to that in actuality, but or maybe they want Picard because he has that experience, and they want to develop it, and they want his help to do it. But I imagine, here's the thing though, I imagine Picard would refuse. Like, I feel like he's the kind of person who would rather die than like help them with like chemical warfare or anything that would like, hurt other people like that. So either they're gonna like try to threaten him or torture. Yeah, those are okay. I don't have, it's not like a straight up, this isn't like a very concrete predictions, but these are just a couple of my ideas.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that I'm floating about. So we'll see. I'm not picking one to stand by. I'm giving my options of what I think.
Yeah.
I'm probably very wrong, but
all right.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to see if Dory's correct, if any of those like end up being true, watch along with us and join us for the next episode of Fully Functional, a TNG podcast.
Goodbye.